Okay, welcome and thank you for joining us for another segment in the Jain Irrigation Training Series. I'm Richard Restuccia, Vice President of Water Management Solutions for Jain, and I'm really excited about our presentation today for a couple reasons. And one, our presenter today is Michael Pippen, and he's always great on his presentations, always interesting and really understands agriculture, and he understands irrigation well, and he's been involved with agriculture and irrigation for his entire life. So, and he's fun to talk to. So that's a real plus. But more importantly, when we started talking about this subject, it was last week sometime, and I said, what do you really want to present on this time? And Michael said, I love our catalog so much. I really want to talk about our catalog. Now, it's not every day that you find salespeople that say, I want to talk about our catalog. And so this is a new Jain catalog. We rolled it out at the beginning of the year, and it was a long project for the marketing team and really the pet project of Michael Derwenko. He's the one who put the most sweat and blood into this catalog, along with the photography for it, the design, the images. That all came from Michael. He did a fantastic job. So when you hear somebody else on the team say, I want to present somebody else's work, that makes you pay attention, right? Because you don't hear this every day. So anyway, we've got to talk about this catalog now because I'm so intrigued by that. And like I said, having Michael Pippen, somebody who's been raised on a farm in the Mississippi River Delta, has worked in cotton, corn, soybeans, gave me some great advice on watermelons back in July. So this is really fun for me today, and kind of a brave experiment too, if you ask me. But so anyway, I was saying, welcome, Michael, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind introduction as always, Richard. And yeah, I always like to make the distinction. When you start talking marketing materials and content, there is no better than Michael Derwenko, the other Michael. He is really his technical abilities lined up with his eye to make things look good and present well is pretty unmatched. I've had an opportunity to work with him on a couple of small projects, and then of course this catalog here that we're going to showcase today. And really what we were kind of starting talking about what we wanted to present. I told Richard kind of the analogy of watching my dad when I was young, like going through this Granger catalog, ordering parts, and it was like 3 inches thick. And I kind of sat there in awe, wondering how in the world did he find what he needed in there and know how to do it and which product to select and all that good stuff and different pricing, all that. And probably was the culmination of working on the farm for 25 years. Well, while there's good in that big, thick Granger catalog, we don't want our catalog to take 20 years to understand, right? We want to not be just line after line after line of parts and SKUs. There's techniques and ways to present that to where if you do have a lot of content like we do, and we are proud of it, Jain, having a very broad and complete product line, how do we get through that and kind of get to where we need to go and not just stay there, but also move into other sections that you may or may not be quite as familiar with. And especially if you kind of take the sales approach to it, that's hugely important, getting outside your comfort area and finding a few nuggets within this catalog. And that's hopefully what we're gonna do today, Richard.
Yeah, so Michael, thank you. And somebody's already asked, well, where is Michael Derwenko today? Why isn't he on this? And so two things. One, he's got a birthday coming up. So he's on a birthday trip and well-deserved. So he's taking some time off for his birthday. And number two, I think it's fun to talk about his product guide from the perspective of somebody else, because then we really understand how somebody else appreciates the work you did. And he was really fine with that. He was actually pretty excited about this. I want to remind everybody too that we have our question and answers opened up, as well as the chat. So if you have some questions you want me to pass on or talk about, please put them there. And my first question for you, Michael, is this: what is the thing that really drew you to this product guide?
Well, as not a real flashy topic, but the way that you can navigate through this catalog quickly and efficiently is hugely important, right? We don't want to understate how important it is for things to be visually appealing, but also provide the information you're looking for without having to dig up. And you know, in our position, the worst thing, put our catalog down and grab somebody else's, right? We want you to stay in our catalog and use it. And there's really kind of, today we're going to spend kind of the very first part of it, you know, showing how to navigate and where to grab this product guide, the different ways that you can use it. And you know, we're going to spend, because of the media today, we're going to spend a lot of time in the PDF that you see on my screen now. But you know, there's been I'd say even internally a lot of back and forth in the last 5 to 10 years of how to consume catalogs, and maybe even longer than that, as digital media got more affordable and easier to get for people to access, and printing and mailing and all that got more expensive. You know, there's kind of, even within us, this internal battle of, you know, digital or hard copy, which one's better, which one's worse, and how do we do it? And I think where we've settled at Jain is that it's not it's not a digital or a print. It's more of an and, or what are you trying to do at that specific time? And so for today, and if I'm traveling or if I'm out in the field, sometimes I use a lot of digital copies like we're doing today in a PDF, and you'll see some of the features why. But, you know, one thing I always want to show is, you know, I have my print catalog here as well, right? And I use that print catalog because I like to make notes and things in there that I learn along the way. Like one thing that I always say here in the drip tape guide is how the drip tape unrolls, right? Because we have some of our products uncoil off the coiler different ways. And I know it in my mind, but when you get in the heat of the battle and somebody asks you, you're like, oh, I can't quite. So those type of notes, I put a lot of those notes in my hard copy. And so this is not necessarily the only way to consume it digitally, right? I think there's a lot of value in having a print copy and being able to put that in front of you and write notes about applications. Troubleshooting is a big one that I've used in my career, is like, you know, especially like when you get to maybe the more technical products like filters and valves, where you can make a note and say, oh, I learned this today, right? This is what happens when this valve does this, check this, and make notes in there. So, you know, so we have a print version. That's probably the primary way that most of our end users and dealers consume the data. I would suggest the content would be on a pay. A lot of people still like that. But then, you know, us internally, I know the sales guys, we use a lot of digital format, but don't always have our computer in front of us. So, you know, very briefly, if you jump over to our website, you know, you can grab this product catalog from any of these resource tabs, right? So if you're working in the agriculture, landscape, greenhouse, nursery, monitoring and control, you know, you can scroll down and you can grab this product catalog, download it, use it, you know, in a tablet or whatever, if you're using some documents app or something like that. But then we also have this tech library app that has a lot of this content that we're going to show today, and the catalog, and also some of our technical resources. And so that's a super powerful tool, especially if you're using an iPad or something like that, where you can scroll through it very quickly, just like you would in any other app, have your technical documents all there in one place. So there's multiple ways that you can consume this. The appearance and some of the color schemes and things like that will flow through all of these different types of media formats. And so that's important to us, just for coherency. And so you can say, okay, well, maybe I don't remember exactly what the title of that product line was, but in my mind, if I can get used to using the blue tab for valves, then when I go over to this app format where you don't have quite as many notes or quite as much physical feel for it, you know, the blue hopefully will trigger that. Oh, I'm looking for the blue tab. And so you'll see some of that stuff, and we'll show some examples of that as we move through the catalog as well.
Okay, so we've lit up with some questions now. So
okay, good.
Okay, so the first thing I just want to clarify is the Jain catalog exists in hard copy as well as digital. If somebody wants a hard copy, how do they get it?
There's a couple of ways. You can actually go grab that off the website as well. You can make a catalog request, you know, and I would say you can always call customer service. They'll reach out to the to the territory managers from there, and they can get one to you, mail one to you. A lot of the sales guys like me, we have some. So if you're reasonably close, we may bring one into and drop it off. But you can always just reach out to us directly at Jain, and we'll get those out to you in a hard copy.
Yeah. Okay, great. And so, right. And I saw on the web, we can just type in the information no matter what time. I don't have to call anybody. And
that's right. You can grab it anytime you like to. From
the website too, I can request it there. And then it exists there in the digital as well. Okay.
That's right.
And then the tech guide you were showing, do I just go in the App Store, type in Jain Irrigation, or how do I get that?
Off the app itself, yeah, it's just right off your whatever device you use and wherever you get your apps. That you type in Jain. There may be a couple of things that pop up there, so make sure you get to the one that's described as. Let me make sure I get the name right. It's a library app, and it'll have our Jain logo on there, and so it'll look just like this, and that's what the shortcut looks like on your phone as well, as just the Jain drop here. And so just download it off your the app store that you use for your iPhone, iPad, or whatever technology you're using.
Yeah, you know, my two favorite things about this tech library, well, actually three. One, it exists on my phone, so I always have my catalog in the phone. That's great to see. Two, I can easily, from my phone, email brochures to customers. So that's great. And then number three, for me as well, is I have all this information. It's easy for me to read. And then if I want to buy something, there's a dealer locator on that app too. So I can put in my zip code of wherever I am, and I can find a close dealer that I want to buy this from. So those are the three things I love about the library.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for bringing up the dealer locator as well, Richard. That's really important, especially the end users. We have looking for a product specific. Where do I buy this thing? We have a dealer network across the whole U.S. And so that's usually a really, if we get somebody downloading it off the website, a lot of times their first question is, where do I go buy this? And so having a dealer locator on the app is really helpful as well.
Yeah, and Alan Nazareth put this app together for us. He did a great job on it, and I remember the first month he did it, we had like 8,000 downloads. I was like, this is amazing. So if you don't have it, or if you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yeah, for sure. So, that's kind of the ways to consume it, where you can get it. We offer it, again, in multiple places, and really the content is universal across all those platforms. So we believe, and at least from my personal experience, it kind of helps you figure out, once you, maybe whichever one you use the most, right, kind of where you learn the catalog and the colors and the formats and things like that, but then it carries into the other media that you don't quite use as much, and maybe that helps you understand those and use those as well. So really kind of jumping in more to the meat of what I'd like to show you and how to use this catalog, some of the features that we have in here that may or may not be unique. I believe they're kind of unique to what you typically see, is some of the functionality that we have within this PDF and how to move around it quickly and effectively without doing a bunch of scrolling, right? And so I'll be zooming in and out a little bit, try not to scroll too much, because I really don't believe that's the best way to navigate through the catalog. This is the way I do it. Everybody has preferences, but I use the page thumbnail feature in the PDF. There is also a bookmark feature. Some people do like that, make notes and things like that. But I believe the quickest and most effective way to move through this catalog is through the page thumbnail feature. So you've got the main product category here, the page you're on here. If you go to page 2, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here now that you got the idea what the main, the real page size scale looks like. You've got this table of contents, right? It's got all these different product lines and product categories highlighted. So if you'll notice, the little finger lights up here, and so you can use this table of contents to jump directly to the section that you're looking at, right? And so you go, well, I'm going to look at filters here, and maybe I know what I want to look for, so I'll scroll down a little bit. Or maybe I don't, and I'm just going to jump to a section here. I can jump to media filters. I can scroll from there. Or maybe I, want to go to the still filter, so you can scroll to there. So, the reason I like this bookmark feature is that you kind of get lost here in a big catalog, right? The scrolling, like, where am I at? Am I at the front part of the filters or my back part of filters? With a page thumbnail, all you ever have to do to kind of get back to zero is scroll all the way up, click back on the table of contents. You go, okay, I was in media filters. I really wanted to go to still filters. I click right there, and that's how I'm going to get there. So instead of this endless scroll up, scroll back, just really easily go back, bring you back down to zero, if you will, back to ground level, back to the table of contents, and move through the catalog very quickly that way. So that's a unique feature that you can move to the individual pieces of the catalog products, the product group, if you will, and then kind of back and forth and throughout the catalog.
Yeah, that's so valuable. You know, I've spent so much time on other people's documents, turning pages, clicking the button, listening to the page turn, and
Yeah.
it's driven me crazy, right? So this
Right.
solves it,
Yeah,
right? And if I want
it
to look at
does.
a mirror line, I can look at that. I can go back, go to fittings, whatever.
Right, and everybody kind of has their level of expertise, or what kind of software. Really, a lot when it comes to PDF. Do you have the full version or the free version? So there's some different features that you may be able to add if you do some different different versions of a PDF editor. But this is basic. I mean, this is what you get for free. So there's no tools here that you're not going to get. If you're wondering, does my software do that? Yes, this is right out of the box. There's nothing special here you have to have. And so, as you start kind of figuring out, okay, what sections do I want to look at, and what content is in those sections, I believe that a lot of people may understand. Hey, let's just say we need we're working with an ag dealer, or maybe even an end user, and says, I know I need a drip tape. Maybe I even know that I want a certain flow rate or a certain spacing or what. But what does Jain offer, right? What is actually out there, and can I even specify what I'd actually want to do, right? As a designer, you can design something that there's no product that actually would solve that solution, right? And so as you become more familiar with what products are offered as a designer, that's really, really valuable. So knowing to be able to design towards a solution that's available in the market today. So let's just say, for example, we want to jump into like our Chapin product. I know that I can click right on this Chapin. It brings me directly to the BTF product line, the Chapin Drip Tape BTF. So what is available from us? And it kind of has some specifications here, but really where we put a lot of time and effort in this catalog is in product selection, because there are a lot of options out there. There are a lot of things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but how do you get through a catalog this big with this many product offerings and get to a selection that you wanted? You'll see this format here that we're going to present kind of through the catalog. Again, very intentional that our selection guides are very similar in the way that they're done. So you only have to learn kind of one way to do this. You'll see some variation depending on the product line, but kind of the similar flowing across the chart left to right. And so you're saying, okay, what does Jain offer here? They offer a BTF Chapin, and they offer it in a 5/8 or a 7/8 product line. And in that 5/8 or 7/8, we have these different wall thicknesses: 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 13, 15. Within those wall thicknesses, we have these current spacings: 4 and 6 and 8 and 12 and 16. And within those spacings, we have these flow rates. We have them both listed at 10 PSI and 8 PSI, whichever one you like to work with. Some manufacturers use 8, some use 10. We have them both in here for that exact reason. And then you get coil links based on the size, right? So the 5/8 and the 7/8 product do have different coil links. So for example, if you knew you needed a 5/8 8 mil product and you're kind of bouncing around, you kind of knew your flow rates, but maybe 8, maybe 12, what am I looking at? So you can go, okay, in 5/8, 8 mil, 8 and 12 inch, here are my options. If I want a 0.40, I've got an 8-inch 40. I've got a 12-inch 40. And you might even look up here and say, oh, do I have a 6? No, I don't have a 6-inch 40, right? I only have a 50 here. So very quickly, you can kind of, if you know one of your design parameters, maybe it's spacing, maybe it's flow rate or application, maybe it's thickness, you can kind of narrow down the product offering here really quickly and see what we offer. And then below it kind of tells you how to order it, right? If you were to call a salesperson up, whether it was a dealer, distributor, or maybe our customer service trying to help you find a dealer or one of our sales guys, you go, okay, what am I really looking for? I'm looking for a BTF 06, 06, 850, right? Hopefully we know what that means when you tell us that. And we may give you some other way to order it, but that's, we know exactly what the specification is there. So that's really one of the tools that you'll see kind of moving through this catalog frequently as we kind of move through today. As we kind of go down, again, I'm going to kind of go back to the base level and look at some of these other tape options and some of these other emitter line options. What do we offer in terms of the emitter line? You can say, okay, well, here's a top drip emitter line, Amnon, Aqualine, Total CV, Mini PEP. So, wow, there's a lot of emitter line options. Let's just start at the top. You'll see again, And some of these, there's less options, like the top drip. We're only offering 4 different sizes here. We have some wall thicknesses that we offer, some flow rates, spacings, right? So this is a lot less complex because this product line just doesn't have as many options as Chapin. Chapin's probably one of our broadest product offerings in a drip emitter tape or tubing. But one thing that I do like about this catalog that, again, is intentional, and you'll see it throughout the catalog, is kind of telling us, well, what do you like to do, Jane? What is your preference, right? If I don't know, or maybe I don't, I don't want to say I don't care, but like what a wall thickness? I don't know what wall thickness. What one do you have in stock? Well, we kind of have these indicators throughout a lot of these selection guides as what is our standard, right? So let me zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. It's got the little asterisk here and says, this is our standard, right? So some of the more obscure specifications that you may or may not be familiar with, we say, this is the one you really want. If you don't want this one, we can talk about these other options. We do a lot of these, but this is kind of what you would want if you didn't specify it, right? We're going to give you a 45 wall thickness. If you go through some of the other Amnon, a few more select, this is a little bit broader, right? It's got a few more options here than the top drip does. Still a similar product, and you've got the sizes. Again, here it is, 45 wall thickness. That's the one we use. That's the one we use the most of. There are other options. If you have some questions, then we can answer those. But we kind of give you these standards to help some of the questions that you may or may not be as familiar with.
Yeah, that's really great, especially the recommendation. And then I also love the example of how to order it, right? Because I don't want to make a mistake in ordering if I'm not, especially when I'm not familiar with one particular product, and to have the model and description already laid out for you makes it so easy.
That's right. And again, you can give it, some of these product lines are pretty intense, especially if you're familiar with, the industry, is that we can tend to get kind of down in the weeds sometimes with all the options that we offer here. And so, I would say the same thing in our micro tubing and our tubing, kind of our round tubing or blank tubing product lines. Like if you look at this the first time, there's a lot of data on it. We would call this a noisy slide, right? If we were doing a presentation, but all the content in there, I believe we've taken a lot of time and effort to use the description of the product to not just tell you what it is, but to help you on the technical side as well, right? In our industry, you'll hear a lot of sizes like 5/8 and 16 millimeter and 18 millimeter and 20 millimeter, and you go, well, what size 20 millimeter do you have? And that in itself doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What size half-inch tubing do you have over there? Well, I have a 5/8 half-inch tubing, right? We do that in the South, right? What kind of Coke do you want? Yeah, I want a Dr. Pepper, right? That's not the greatest way to describe these things, is with kind of these nominal dimensions. So at Jain, we've taken the time, and it's a little bit painful in the sales guys, right, to have to learn this, but we've done this long enough that a lot of our customers and everything, and most of our dealers order things this way, where we're ordering by outside diameter, by inside diameter. And then there's the coil length, right? Part number, all the specs, everything you need. So our ordering number is the outside diameter by inside diameter, not 16 millimeter. In this case, 8 millimeter. If you get down to the round tubing, let's get outside of the, I'm doing my scrolling thing I said I wasn't going to do, Richard.
I know, you even said you were going to put a piece of tape on your scroll feature.
Yeah, so I didn't scroll. But you start looking at some of the larger tubings here, like a 3/8 tubing. Well, we're offering this in a 455 by 375 or a 375 by 250, right? These are all different products for different applications. But if you were just to order a 3/8 tubing or a 5/8 or a half-inch, you obviously can see there's some problems there of how to get the correct thing ordered. As we're kind of moving through this tubing product line, one that I did want to highlight that's a little bit unique, and some things that we do here at Jain, is this Flex PVC Riser. This riser tubing is kind of a lot of people, when they saw it the first time, they call it like a rubber hose, right? But it's really like a riser, a gluable PVC product. But it's flexible and used kind of like in a riser application. You'll see that when we get down to our fitting section where this product fits in. So it's kind of unique, uses a riser product, has a lot of different applications, a little bit rigid, a little bit, almost like a swing pipe for the ag world, right? So this is kind of a neat product that not everybody offers. And we offer a lot of these specifications in rolls, cut links, and even kind of some in-between sizes to work in the SDI market. So that's a real popular, but not one that you're probably not going to get its own webinar. Flex PVC is probably not going to get its own webinar of a product specification. And this is kind of the real slide I was looking for when you start talking about which one of these. Look at all these versions of 1/2 inch we have. Like that's a lot of different sizes that are called 1/2 inch. And so intentionally we use this ODID to describe it. So we order it correctly and you know, kind of use the description as a technical platform as well.
Yeah, when I first saw this, it was really overwhelming, right, to see this chart. And then I realized that some of it is the ODID situation, but really most of it occurs because for every different length, we have to have a different part number. So 50, 100,
that's right.
500, 1000, that's the same product, but with 5 different part numbers because there's 5 different lengths you can buy it in.
That's correct. I think one thing that we do at Jain is we really offer a broad line here because we're global. Well, we're here in the USA, we go from coast to coast, right? And so, you know, what works for the West Coast doesn't always work for the East and doesn't work for the Central as well. And also landscape versus ag. And so there's definitely some in here that are in our wheelhouse is what we do every day. And we notify that as well as saying this is MTO. That's kind of a made to order item right here. That's not one that we're probably going to have a tremendous amount of stock of. But if I zoom back out, you can see you really don't start getting to these made to orders till you get to the large diameters, kind of some of the custom inside outside diameters, and they all have a great application, but not really our bread and butter. So we do try to simplify it down, kind of like the little asterisk. This is what we normally buy. You know, one other category that I really like how we presented it is our fittings. And I believe our fitting category is probably, it is not our strongest category, it's one of them, right? We have a great brand name on our power locks and tape lock fittings. And you would think that that's not an overly technical product line, but I believe it can be, right? The whole idea of the power lock is that it kind of takes some of that specification problem out of the way, but we offer several different product lines here, products within the fitting category. This to me is one of the most important slides, or if you will, or pages in the catalog. It tells you how to take power lock SKUs, 6 SKUs here, and basically work at any kind of, you know, round or emitter line tubing in the market that's not just way outside of the normal, right? I mean, this, I don't have the real statistics on it, but I would suggest you could take these 6 fittings and you could work with well over 90% of the tubing, whether emitter line or whatever that's in the market in the irrigation industry today. So very powerful tool. If I go back to my distribution days, we got a question a lot about fittings. And it's interesting, and also people don't really want to call you about a question about fittings because they're a little bit ashamed. But, you know, if you think if you've got one of these fittings and you've never seen it before, you know, what do you do with it and how does it work? And so this diagram here that shows you how to put the tubing on, then spin the nut over the tubing and you lock it in place rather than take the nut off, put the tubing on and try to tie the nut on top like a ferrule fitting or something. You know, you talk like a lot of these contractors in the ag or the landscape application, you know, they're used to working with copper pipe and PEX tubing where a lot of the fittings, the nut slides over the product, the hose goes on the barb and then you tighten it down. And so people would call us and they would be like, look, I'm sorry to ask you this, but how do these fittings work, right? Well, how does this work, right? I've been trying everything. It will not go on there. And we would always say as salespeople, I'd be like, don't worry about it. We get this question all the time. You tighten the nut down, then push the hose onto the fitting and then unscrew that hose. So again, kind of taking one of those, why this catalog is important, some of the intentionality out of it is, this diagram. How simple is that we put that in there and show you how to do it? Now, I say how simple is that, you can look at the detail, the clarity, and, if you want to tell somebody how to, I just took 3 minutes to describe what this did with 3 images, right? So these images are very intentional to describe how they're done and how to use that product line. Right above it, you have the specifications that it works in. So you could take this right here realistically and you can go to work, right? Elbow, coupler, those type of things are a little more universal, but you'd have to know, power lock 60, here's how you use them, here's how you specify it. You're really off to the races right here.
Yeah, I love the power locks. So we also have a video showing how to put those on, but once you got it, you got it. And especially in the landscape industry, you know, you roll up on a job and you got 1/2-inch tubing out there. You don't have to figure out whose 1/2-inch tubing it is. You've got your power locks and it fits all the 1/2-inch tubing. So we've really seen an increase in contractors using that because of the labor and the time savings in figuring that out.
Yeah, really briefly before we get into some of the few of the other topics I want to hit in this catalog and highlight real quick. These are the riser fitting assemblies that I was describing, where we can do some things like this. Same type of ordering process where you kind of got this number code, and then you move across here. It's got a description of how to do it, and where you can order these assemblies direct from us rather than do it out in the field.
Michael,
kind of jumping around.
Who's using those riser assemblies? Who uses those for what?
A lot of our ag dealers use them if they've got a large project. It may not be a stock item for them, but let's say they're doing an almond field and or even like a SDI and cotton, and they've got 1,000 of these things to build up. You got 10, not that big of a deal, but you got 1,000 of them, and besides just the cost and the labor and getting them all right, we have a way that we can cut those links almost identical every time. We can weld them up almost identical every time. You get a finished product, you can take it out the field. There's no worry about glue or conditions, right? A lot of times, is it hot? Is it cold? How's that glue going to work? So those are super popular in those kind of applications where we can build those up in controlled environment and take few of the elements to the gluing process.
Yeah, what a time saver, huh? That's
right. So using some of my tools that I described, they were like, I wanted to jump for the valve, and I honestly didn't quite remember the fitting. The valves came right after the fitting, so I kind of went back to ground zero. Right, I scrolled up in the page thumbnail, went to the table of contents, and I want to show you this valve builder here. This is a super powerful tool. Valves are very complex. To build a hydraulic valve, for those of you that are familiar with this product line, it can be complicated, right? Let me go one page up. Look at this dude, right? It's got all kinds of stuff hanging off of it, different sizes, different components, right? This is a metal one, this is a plastic or PVC, this is the smaller globe, more like a landscape valve, right? All these tubes and brass connectors. What in the world's going on here, right? And so we've taken a lot of time and trying to help you describe that valve in as few words as you possibly can. And so in this valve builder, you've got the functionality on this side, the size, material, and some of the diaphragm on this first page. And that really tells us the majority of what we need to know for that valve. We're going to buy a pressure reducing manual electric valve, PRMEL. We want to buy a 3-inch, so 3, and we want it to be cast iron flange, CIF, and we're going to use the standard diaphragm. There are some things that, you're writing your catalog, I'd write right here and put an asterisk and say, we use the standard diaphragm almost all the time, right? That'd be something that you'd want to put in your permanent, but knowing that there is another option there. When you get to the next section, you talk about solenoids. Depending on which valve you select, you may do a 24-volt normally open solenoid. And if you've got a small valve, you use S1. If you've got a large valve, you use L1. If you go into the pilot, like in a pressure reducing from 1 to 6-inch valves, we use the plastic pilot. So you've got your pressure ranges here, right? And then you got all these options you can put on the end. So there is a lot. A chart like this is going to take some practice, and that's okay. That's what we're here for at Jain. We have technical people on the inside. I got a little tutorial today from our valve product manager, making sure that I understood everything. But I will say that that with a little bit of practice, you can move through it pretty quickly. Some of the other features here. Go ahead.
These photos are pretty amazing and I believe Michael took almost every one of these photos as well. And it's pretty nice to be able to see the product so clearly.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important part of the catalog and trying to figure out what product you want is how to place these things, right? If you take a product, one that I'd show is like maybe some of the more obscure items in the catalog, like an air vent or something along those lines. Like, what do you use with an air vent? Well, a lot of time was taken to take the picture of an air vent where it's supposed to be, right? So now you're like, oh, well, that's what I do with an air vent, right? And those are subtle details, but they really help when you're trying to learn how to use, if you haven't been in the industry forever, like, what do I do with an air vent? Well, that's how it's installed, right? And then, oh, well, there's a whole bunch of pictures of different ones and what they do, right? Here's a neat one, right? What do I use that staple thing for, right? Why is that in the catalog? And you can look at this and go, it holds the tubing down. Isn't that neat, right? So, a lot of intentionality put in the content, and also the clarity, right? I mean, having a picture that is this good, I don't understand or know how they do it, but it is phenomenal in the way that they get these pictures in here. If you can bear with me one quick second, Richard, I want to show one more example of the product kind of selection guide here that's a little bit different in our micro sprinkler section.
Right.
And so it looks a little bit different than the tape and emitter line. It looks a little bit different than the valve section. But like, you'll see this kind of format for almost all of our sprinklers, where you've got kind of this series 161. You got all these different options with the swivels, flow rates, all these type of things. But you'll notice, again, the asterisks, right? Like, whoa, well, there's a lot of options here. What do you normally do, right? And so we've got some ways to kind of steer you and point you in the right direction of what we normally do. And then we do our best to write underneath that, or in that same section, maybe on the page before, but mostly on the page after, where you've got the technical detail of figuring out, oh, well, I want, green with green, and these spinners don't even work. I can't do that. Here's the green kiwi. That's the one I want. And so without jumping all over the place, if you're a scroller like I am, you can just scroll right back up. Or if you're in your paper catalog, you can imagine they're across the page from each other. So again, some of the organization, like, you'll wonder, why is there a picture right there? Well, there are pictures there to make these selection guides and the technical information kind of fit in the right frame of vision, and not 3 pages down the road. So again, that's kind of a subtle but important way to present the catalog.
I thought it was nice too, because you even see on some of the illustrations, some of the spray patterns and what you expect from that. I mean, certain people have very specific requirements there. Right.
What does that thing actually do? Well, that's what the water looks like coming out of it. These look pretty flat, and that one, it kind of curves down, right? A lot of that takes some time to get in there, but if you're not familiar with the product line, you can look at that and make some really good judgments.
All right, Mike, we got a couple more minutes
that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, if anybody had any questions, about we wanted to dive in, there's all kinds of stuff here. I'd say the kind of the one of the funnest part of the catalog, more obscure part of the catalog, if you will, is our tools and accessories. We have a very broad range of tools and accessories. They kind of go everywhere, run the gamut from, like, little fittings to do specific things, to wire ties and staples and figure eights and all kinds of crazy stuff that really helps tie the system together. And it's important to be able to purchase at one location. And I think that's worth some time. Again, here's another nice picture of something that maybe not your most common product, but like a flush valve, and how you use that installed in the right application. So the tools section is one that I'm fond of, because it really helps a dealer or distributor or end user select all the products and not go hunting around to get the products to actually tie the system together. So yeah, that's kind of what I have for the presentation today, unless somebody has some specific questions about that we want to look at a little bit more detail.
Yeah, a couple things. One, I do love this photo in particular, because everybody should have flush valves on their system. They typically don't in landscape, and then we show them in this photo exactly how it should be installed and used, and that photo is worth 1,000 words, so that's great. One of the things, Michael, I think that we got a question here. People are a little overwhelmed, right? It's a couple 100-page catalog, or over 200 pages. If I'm really looking at it for the first time, or I'm going to look at it differently after this session than I did before, first-time user, what would you say they should, how should they start? How should they go through the catalog?
Well, I guess I'd make the assumption that you're at least interested or have some background in irrigation, right? Yeah. And so I would challenge you to kind of start where you're comfortable, right? And that will help you learn the layout of the catalog, right? So let's say you worked maybe at a dealer that did a lot in the greenhouse section. And so you worked with a lot of different types of filters. And so you could go to this section, start getting the idea of how it plays together, how this is presented. And I think that would be helpful to you as you look into other sections. And then I think, honestly, like most things, it's taking a little bit of time and scrolling through it and seeing if you can figure out the product selection guides, right? I think that's a great tool to figure out, you know, what does this thing do? How does it do it? Again, all these things have extra resources to them. And so, like, if you look at this blue filter page here, I've got the spin clean. Let's say you're looking for a spin clean filter, and you're like, I don't know, this is a lot of stuff in here. You know, back where we showed you in the resource guide, you go, again, filters blue, spin clean. Does that picture look familiar? Looks familiar, right? The color there is intentional. So you're not going, am I in the spin clean section? Of course you are, because the picture, the color, and everything's the same. And you can kind of get into some more detail. Almost all of these product categories have extra resources that are available on the website, like where we showed you here under the technical guide. So if you go to Ag Product Catalog, technical brochures is where you would find all this stuff, and you can download them or you can view them live. So there's a lot. There's our air vent picture, right? So again, a lot of redundancy to help you not, where's the air vents? Where's the screen filters, right? Oh, that picture, I remember that. I've seen that, right? And so I think that that's the way I do it. Start where you're familiar. If there's something you're not familiar with, see if you can find an additional resource for it. And most of the time, they're going to be there.
Yeah, so that's great. And you just answered the next question too, and that was, what is all this color coding about? And certainly it is to keep you consistent in the product category. So
yeah, I find it super helpful. I really do. I think it's one of those things that I don't know that I put a whole lot of thought into previously. But you know, you'll see the color tabs and all your binders and things like that. But when you start talking about different marketing resources built for different purposes, like a catalog versus a cut sheet versus maybe a sales sheet, you know, having that uniform move through where you can just go grab that and recognize that and not have to say, is this the thing I was looking at in the catalog? It really is a pretty valuable tool.
Yeah. And then we did have another listener make a comment, not a question, but a comment. They were saying with the app, product guide, or the technical brochures library in that app, you can access the information. You don't even have to be online. So you can download the stuff to your phone or your iPad or your computer and have it. And if you don't have a good connection, you can still access the information. They want to make that point, which I think is a great point.
Yeah, you're right, especially with a catalog that's pretty big, right? And, you know, you might not have every resource on your, you know, all of them downloaded on your phone because of space. I get that. You never have enough space on your phone, right? No matter how many gigs they hold. But the catalog, having that catalog to where you can pull it when you're in a rural area is super important to me. So I have that one downloaded. I have my filter one downloaded. I have my valve one downloaded. The ones that are that I go to frequently, I already have those on hand, so I don't have to have a cell signal to do that.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing I just want to mention is, you know, we talked about the marketing team participating with the catalog and Michael Derwenko, of course, but man, this was a combined effort from our product managers to our salespeople. I mean, everybody, customer service, everybody pitched in and helped with this catalog. And well, I think they did a fantastic job. I really appreciate it. Michael, of course, you did a great job in showing this. No surprises there, but I really do appreciate the work you do and the effort you make on these presentations. Really great job today. I want to thank all our viewers out there today, you know, giving us your lunch hour again for most of you, or your time late in the afternoon on a Friday. We know that's valuable time. We hope that we're filling your time with valuable information. We really appreciate you being here and watching. So thanks very much for that. I hope everybody has a great weekend. And Michael, thanks again. You put our contact information up. Thanks for doing that. We'll definitely be sending an email out with the video so people can look at the video again if they want, or share it around. And of course, the webinar will be on our website, as well as Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts now. So anyway, thanks again. Sorry for all that stuff at the end. So we're getting through a lot, but Michael, thank you.
I appreciate you again. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Enjoyed it.
Okay. Thanks again, everyone.